Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah wa sallallahu ala nabil ummi. I'll start off with a hilarious story and then we'll get into a very profound Islamic lesson. So the story was, I was speaking, an old man that used to, very religious person, very smart person, who my father told me this person has been religious from his youth. So he's a senior now, but my father told me, like, be very nice to this person. He's been religious from when he was young till now. He's lived this very impeccable, good religious life. So I look up to this person a lot, very religious person in the community, and we had this funny conversation. So he's talking about how the complexity of a marriage. So he's like, whenever I put my foot down and I'm strong in getting my point across, then the objection is made that, oh, he's too strong, he's too crazy. You know how women would term it. And if I'm being nice and understanding, then she says, oh, I got him under control. So he felt like it was a losing situation both ways. Either he was being called crazy by his wife because he was able to say something and be firm with it, or he was being told that he was being controlled. So that is a very true feeling that people have whenever they do something good and it was very peaceful and the outcome was good. You get this sense of having betrayed your own strength, so you kind of feel cowardly. And now let's jump to the seerah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whenever there was battles and they would win, generally the word fath could be used, but the Quran used that word, inna fatahna, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, inna fatahna laka fathan mubina, we gave you a very clear victory. And this verse was revealed after a peace treaty, not after a war. Can you just comprehend how profound that is? And if you go into the details of that story, it becomes even more striking. The peace treaty that was written was so lopsided and one-sided that the Muslims completely felt humbled and degraded, because all the conditions were leaning in favor to the non-Muslims with whom they had written the peace treaty, the people of Mecca. So everything was basically against the Muslims. It was, some of the conditions were, if a person who was a Muslim decided to leave Islam and come to Mecca, then we won't be obliged to send him back to your community. But vice versa, if a person was to become Muslim from Mecca and then come to Medina Munawwara, then you have to return him. So it was just ludicrous type of conditions all the way throughout the peace treaty. And they had objection to the initial wording, or the last wording of the contract, which was, this is what Prophet Muhammad and the people of Mecca have agreed upon. So even just that word Prophet Muhammad, the Prophet of Allah, they said, no, we don't know you as a Prophet of Allah. So it was very disrespectful and humbling experience for all the believers. And those who were very mature and able to see through the wisdom, they were able to understand it. But Umar radiallahu anhu, being slightly younger, he just felt so lost. He went to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, how is it a victory when we are being bullied, basically? And then he went to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. He almost got the same reply as from Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that part of us, which Umar radiallahu anhu experienced, that's always within us. Like, oh, how can I be humbled to do something? How can I have a peace treaty with people that are pushing me around? So when you're younger, you're looking for blood. You're looking to fight. You're looking to make statements. But as you grow older and you're confident in your manliness, you don't have anything to prove to anybody. you're not trying to try to be the alpha and whatever, because you know that doesn't describe you. You're more than that. So that's when you realize that peace treaty is the normal state of life. Having peaceful relationships, that should be the norm. That should be your default state with people. It shouldn't be of conflict. Like, yo, he said this to me, and then I said this to him. Like, if that's how your brain works all the time, you're way too young, like up here. Your brain should always be thinking, well, I cool the situation down by saying this, and I feel happy about it. I cool the situation down by saying this or by doing this, and I calm things down. It shouldn't be to instigate things. It should be to calm things down. So you know how when we were younger, you see two people arguing, you're like, fight, fight, fight. If that's how your brain works, you want to see fights, then that's very immature of us. And so we need to sometimes really reflect on these very important ideas of why a person needs to work on that part of his growth. So whether you being humble towards your friends, to your co-workers, to your spouse, many men and women, they feel very, very humbled and feel like, oh no, how can I let him get away with this? How can I let her get away with this? If you're thinking this is a battle, like a marriage or any relationship is a battle, then that's a wrong, completely wrong outlook. And let me share a very powerful hadith with you, which will really calm down, especially those who feel like, oh, I need to show my strength. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, in a relationship, in a marriage between a man and a woman, if a man is very harsh and very like rude and willing to go for fights, then such a man can control them, can control a woman. But Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, generally, the kinder men, the more noble men, they will be controlled by their women. So really reflect on that. يغلبهن اللئام ويغلبن الكرام أو كما قال, that the very lowly men who are willing to fight about everything, they will be able to control and overpower their women. But the noble men, they will be generally controlled by their or overpowered by their women. So if you feel very uncertain about your manliness, then a woman telling you to do anything is going to bother you a lot. And obviously I'm talking about the mundane things. If it's really important, life matters, and your outlook on life, then you might want to talk about it. But in little things where you have to prove yourself and be dominant, then you got it all wrong, honestly speaking. The fact that you let somebody who you see as weaker get away with something, that's a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. When a child misbehaves in a house, they're not getting away with the misbehavior or the childish behavior because they're stronger than the adults. They just know that the kindness in the hearts of the adults allows them to do these silly things. So if your spouse gets away with a little bit of silly behavior and they feel good about it, understand that you've been generous. Understand you've been kind. And that's why they know they can get away with it. So it just shows your nobility. And in Surah Tahrim, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was given revelation of how his spouses had planned against him in certain way. And Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he was so noble, so noble. The Quran says he confronted them with some of the matters and he ignored some of the matters. Because he knew that the fact that he knows so much now, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him the details of how they planned, he could not even bring it up to them, because when you bring up things to people, it kind of shocks them and they feel bad because they made a mistake and now you're confronting them. So it's always a sunnah of the noble people to overlook the weaknesses of others, and that is always the way to go about. If you're noble by nature, you will let things fly. You'll let things go because you just want to pretend you never seen that weakness in a person. And as I had mentioned in in the marriage series, I had mentioned that somebody who's overly hypercritical, that's not healthy for a marriage. It might be good if you were a coach or something in a sports team or whatever, but being overly critical in a marriage never helps. So just because you're good at reading people is not really important for you, because you don't need to be doing that in a marriage and in a friendship, in a very honest relationship. You don't need to do that. You're supposed to be the opposite. You're supposed to be able to overlook things. So may Allah give us tawfiq to be very noble like Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa sallallahu ala nabiyil ummi.